Let's do it.
Okay. Just have a little tea time.
Tea time chat.
All right. Hello from Berlin. I am Kristen. I'm writing at Unicorn Hollow about small things that give us hope as creators, writers, slightly messy humans, and opera singers. This is my sister Laura, and today I'm chatting with her, bona fide opera diva.
Sure.
And formerly annoying little sister.
Yeah.
Yep.
That one for sure.
For sure. So anyway, I wrote the bio for Laura, and so I thought I'd give you a little background on her first. She spent her earliest years basically constantly annoying her family by narrating everything in her life as though she were the star of her very own musical.
I was.
She belted out jaunty, off-key tunes about things like eating Teddy Grahams, roasting marshmallows, and was really extra good at getting her brother and I in trouble. But fast forward several decades, and here she is, responsible adult, touring the world, literally all over the world, as a opera singing soprano. She most recently performed in Paris before this and is finishing up with her last performance in Berlin tomorrow night, which I'm going to go see again. It's so good. And one of the things that I've noticed is she often carefully and really lovingly portrays highly traumatized and very complex women. And she does that really, really beautifully, which we'll talk about later, which includes her role here in Berlin as Violante. So when she's not touring the world, she lives in Baltimore with one of the coolest people in the entire world, who I'm wondering if he's on here. I think he is. Jonathan, are you here? He is with her husband, Jonathan. Oh, so yes, there we go. It's Jonathan. So anyway, she's a singer, but I think for anyone who is involved in any of the creative disciplines, writing, art, you'll see a lot of things in common, and I think a lot of her insights as being a career creative will be super helpful for anyone, and also just as a human. So yay. Let's just hop right in. Laura, my first question for you.
Yeah.
How in the world did you go from obnoxious, annoying little sister, especially growing up in South Dakota, which is not actually known for its opera, how did you get to where you are right now? Tell me a little bit about your journey with as much detail as you want. And what I'd like you to pick one thing in your journey that was like really not what you expected.
The entire thing was not what I expected. So yeah, I was the annoying little sister. I loved singing and dancing and being the center of attention. We have a plethora of home videos where my big sister was the camera woman, and it was just hours of me. There's an entire video of me dancing lyrically to the Beaches soundtrack.
Mm-hmm. Very we did listen to that a lot, the Beaches soundtrack. Yeah.
And I loved to perform in community theater and solos, and luckily, thanks to your, I think, interest and our wonderful parents who put us in activities, I started at dance at the age of like 3. And so I danced my whole basically childhood, teenage years, and did ballet and tap and jazz and character, things like that. And a lot of creative arts. And the big kicker was in 5th grade when I picked the trumpet as my instrument.
Which we were all thrilled, by the way,
yeah,
that she went from belting out singing to trumpet.
My plan initially was the tuba because I guessed it was the loudest. And
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah. And then a mom and dad said no to the tuba. And so I was like, well, the trumpet's like a mini tuba and it only has 3 keys. So it's going to be easy, was my...
I don't know that was actually better, Mom and Dad.
No.
Just saying.
Just easier to carry to places. So my childhood dream then very quickly became trumpet. And there's a symphony orchestra in South Dakota. There's a lot of opportunities for honors bands and all-state band and a lot more sort of instrumental, I think, than singing, other than choral singing, like just singing in choir in South Dakota. And so trumpet was sort of my path. And the summer before my senior year of high school, my parents thought it would be wise to sort of throw me in the deep end because I was a pretty successful trumpet player, young trumpet player in South Dakota, in all states and all of that. And it's a pretty small pool. And so they said, well, let's just toss her in. And they sent me to Interlochen Arts Camp in Michigan, which is a pretty intense 2-month arts camp for a bunch of different art forms, but particularly instrumental and music are high levels of that. And so I got there and I was not the best trumpet player at Interlochen, but I did love music and I took voice lessons there for fun as just a side activity. And the voice teacher there was like, you should maybe get some lessons when you get home.
You have a really powerful voice.
Yeah, it was, I think the big things that marked it sort of early on where I had a pretty even voice where like, there are different breaks in your vocal range where you shift from like chest voice up to mid voice, belting up to head voice, and mine I had this pretty wide range, and there wasn't a huge shift between a lot of young women will have a very airy high range and then sort of a strong mid range, especially if they're listening to a lot of pop music and singing along with that. And I had a pretty big range without a big shift between those sections. And so I think like they got excited about that. They gave me some classical music, and then my senior year of high school, my wonderful mother drove me, which she did every week from 7th grade until my senior year, drove me to SDSU in Brookings, South Dakota, to take trumpet lessons from an incredible professor who was willing to start teaching a middle school student with his schedule. And then my senior year, we added on to that a day of driving to Sioux Falls to work with another wonderful college professor who was willing to help me prepare for college auditions. So I did a whirlwind year of getting pieces of classical music ready to sing, even though I had no idea what I was doing. I was much better at trumpet, but I went and auditioned at colleges for both trumpet and singing. And ended up going to St. Olaf College for trumpet performance initially, but St. Olaf was perfect for me because they allowed me the chance to keep my music scholarship that I got for trumpet, even if I switched to voice. And that was a big thing for me because I didn't want to get into debt as much as I could as a music major. And so I ended up going to St. Olaf. Halfway through, realized in the practice room I would spend hours switching back and forth between trumpet and singing, and I discovered more and more my interest was in the singing practice. And I would get nervous with trumpet, and I didn't get nervous with singing, and so that all of those things sort of pointed towards singing being my path. And then, yeah, I guess sort of doors kept opening. I went to Indiana University for my master's in vocal performance, and then got young artist programs in Arizona and in St. Louis, Santa Fe, and then the last one at the Lyric Opera of Chicago. And in 2016, launched from being a young artist into a like freelance singer the way I have been, with an agent who gets me hired to opera companies around the world. And so I've been doing that for the last decade.
It's crazy.
That's the path.
That's the really weird path from South Dakota.
What was unexpected? The entire thing, because I was going to be a trumpet player. I did not want to be a singer. I also, through the path, I was a mezzo-soprano, which is the lower female voice type.
She did a lot of pants roles.
I played
men.
prepubescent boys.
Yeah.
And then I switched in my final years, young artist years, I switched to soprano. So sort of every path I started on ended up turning a really surprising corner for me. And yeah, the doors kind of kept opening and I kept walking through them. We had a conversation the other night that I feel like I haven't made a lot of decisions in my life. The paths, the doors that I think I was supposed to walk through kind of kept opening and I kept getting shoved through them. And I was a little too practical probably to have become an artist in terms of like the lifestyle. I like routine and I like structure, and I am not a natural adventurer, but this whole career has sort of pushed me out of my comfort zone into a really big life that I think I wouldn't have had if I hadn't been pushed there.
Yeah. And that actually is a really good segue for what I'm going to ask next. And I'm just going to say hi to anyone who's joining now. This is Laura Wilde, who is an opera soprano, and we are chatting with her about her journey. And we're going to get a little bit into what it looks like on a daily basis, her artistic process. And if you have any questions, throw them in the little chat down there. And at the end, we'll go through, and if we have some time, we'll answer some questions. So you had said you're a person of routine. It's very funny because I am not. So we have often joked that it is hilarious that she has ended up in the job where she has very little stability. Yeah. She's moving back and forth all the time, whereas I feel stuck sometimes in the one spot. But we are able to, I think, do a lot of growing that way. And so one of the things actually that I think makes you a really good artist is you made a comment to me the other day that you think what has made your career possible to have a career in this is that you really love the work of singing. And so I think that actually plays a little bit to your routine and your love of routine. But can you talk to me a little bit about what that is, what you mean by you love the work of singing, and how is that different than just loving singing? And what does that look like on a daily basis?
Yeah. We got into this conversation because I've been working with and starting to work with more students. And when it comes to this really weird career path, when you're starting to give students advice or sort of talking through who should go into this profession, I think that with the arts, you get a lot of different reasons why people go in, but a lot of it, they feel their soul is artistic. They enjoy, for this, people just who love singing. And there are times where I've asked myself if I'm in this for the right reasons, because I am not sort of one of those that like my soul would shrivel and die if I wasn't expressing myself by singing. I have a myriad of different interests. I feel like my value as a human being is not just in this career, or the success in this career, but the thing that I love about it is the actual work. Like if you were going to do a job, this is the job I would want to be doing. This is how I like spending my day. So even during the pandemic, which those who are sort of connected to the opera world know how hard that hit our industry, because of course we're singing on stage next to our colleagues traveling the world, kissing random colleagues and having packed audiences of generally a lot of older people. So it was one of the last things to open up. I had a full 2-year break between my like last time on stage and then 2 years later when I finally was back on stage in front of an audience. I did digital stuff, but in general it was 2 full years. And but every day during the pandemic, I would wake up, work out, sit at the piano and just practice. And so I think like, that's how I wanted to spend my time. I'm sure there was some like trauma response of control in there too, but
I will control my time by practicing.
But I love practicing. I love working on vocal technique. I love cracking open a fresh score. And generally what we have to do, because most of our roles are not in our native, at least Americans, native language. I sing a lot of German, Czech, Russian, Italian. That's a lot of what I sing. And I'm not fluent in any of those languages. I'm conversational in some and very not conversational in others. And so depending on the language that I have to approach, I have to start from different points of sort of sitting down. I did my first full Russian role recently, and I just didn't have enough history with Russian to not have to go through. I had to go through and go sound by sound with every single word. And then eventually you have to put the word together to mean and know what the word means. And then you have to work on the accent and you have to work on the stress. And then you have to do that with everyone else's lines that you're on stage with because it's theater. So I have to know what everyone's saying at every point. And then you get to the point where you are speaking as though you are a play actor, singing as though you're a play actor who's speaking the words as though you know them, because you do. But that takes a lot more time with roles that are in languages you're less familiar with. And so there are parts of it that are painstaking, and I don't love sitting down and shoving that into my brain, but I love the feeling of improvement. I think this can get into another question that you have later about prioritizing future self over present self. But I love the feeling of, I worked on this section yesterday, I came back today, and it's better. Like, it's in my brain. Because the point that we have to get to with opera in particular, when you are singing on stage with staging, dancing, acting, costumes, is that I have to almost be able to have a conversation and know when my entrance is coming in, and know it has to be automatic. So I'm not having to think, but I can be present in the moment and acting like a human being, responding to people and not just counting or trying to remember what my next line is. And so I really like the process of hitting sort of points in the process where, okay, I have that part memorized, or I have this all learned, and now I'm going to move on to memorization, or I like how I'm singing this high note, but I'm going to try a couple different ways. And so I like the feeling of improvement and growing, and I like the work of the more freedom I find in the singing and in the sort of being prepared, the more I get to play when I'm on stage in rehearsals.
Because you do a lot of that actually on your own, right? Like, this is the
I
thing.
do all of that on my own.
This is the thing that I think was so interesting with being a writer. And then I know people who do art, and dance is a little bit, sometimes can be different, but sometimes not. I think so much of your life, it feels on the outside like your life is traveling the world, wearing fancy ball gowns, putting on makeup and hair, and doing all that, working with casts from around the world. And that's a really small part of what the daily work is. And it's a lot of alone. It's a lot of doing the stuff that no one gets to see. Such a small percent of it is actually presenting to the world. Yeah, what it is that you're doing. So, like, for people who are writers, where you spend years writing a book that no one gets to see, sometimes ever, and then you have to wait and wait and wait, and finally it comes out. I feel like I had the perception, at least, that performers, it's totally different. You get so much more validation, but it's actually so much alone, hard dedication time that in order to be successful, you have to come prepared. So that's...
Yeah, we have to, for opera, which is a little different from things like theater, where I think they kind of memorize the script as they go in rehearsals. For us, particularly because the music is hard to learn, you're in these different languages, you have to be fully learned and memorized on the first day of rehearsal. And so I started rehearsals here. To give an example, I started rehearsals here the second week of December, I think. I started preparing this role. I think I got the music in May of the previous year, last year,
2025.
And really started digging in probably in the fall, because I had other roles and other life things going on. And then we opened at the end of January. So I had rehearsals here starting in December, but all of the work happened before that. And then I have only 5 performances. And so there are 5 times that I'm actually getting to present it to people, and I never get to see my product.
Yeah.
It's this strange feeling of, you get done with a job and you can't quite remember. It's hard for your memory to remember that it even happened, because you're kind of moved on to the next thing, and sort of all you have, unfortunately, is reviews.
Which
sort
is
of are the
great or not.
Yeah. You never know. And so it's a that's why I sort of say that you, in order to do this as a full career, the only thing you love can't be performing in front of an audience, because otherwise the rest of your life will be really miserable if you hate the other parts of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do want to get to future you over present you. I'm talking about the way I tend to live, present me over future me. But I did want to ask, because you're talking about preparing, you have basically been killed in 5 different languages, or died.
Or killed myself.
Or killed you. There's a lot of that.
Fair.
Like, really, the opera world tends, I think the thing that I'm curious about, because Laura has played a lot of really complex women. And opera, I think, has a tendency, based on when it was written, to really caricaturize women or stigmatize mental health stuff. And I think you've been able to really dig in and portray, like, this, Violanta. I think the way it was originally written was, the way Laura was describing it was, sort of more shallow, a much less honorable view of women. And when I saw it, whoa, the way that they presented it, it's giving me goosebumps thinking about it. So what do you do when you're preparing for, because you've really not had a highly traumatized life.
No, I have not.
You've had a very secure, stable space. So what do you do to prepare to really give voice to these women who are often squished down, used as a form of entertainment to really share their story?
It's been a journey to figure out how to do it. I think that one of the things that I particularly always want to bring to my characters is the why. Like, I want to find the why of, because very often, like, I make this joke that if the soprano would just pick the baritone, no one would ever have to die. And that's most opera is sort of the, like, baritone's this bad person or evil person, but that she's in love with the tenor and that causes problems, and then someone has to die within there, and usually it's the woman. And so I think that a lot of these stories, depending on how they're portrayed, like you said, can be really, I call them floppy women, like kind of just like, oh, I'm at the mercy of men. And the thing is that they are, like, most of these women are not making decisions that put themselves in these horrible situations. Right. And so the thing that I enjoy doing is taking the text and trying to figure out both the why and also who they were before the trauma happened. Because I had a composer coach of mine once who said, there's something unique about the day we've just stepped into, right? So you walk on stage and today is going to be different for some reason. And so trying to understand who they were before helps you understand why they make the decisions now, why they're in the position they are, why they're willing to sacrifice their life for the love of this tenor. Or, most of the time it's, if you really get underneath it, there's sort of more in there. And a good example is, there's an opera called Salome, which is based on the biblical story of Salome, John the Baptist. Herod wants the head of John the Baptist, or Herodias does, and asks Salome to dance for Herod, and she asks for the head of John the Baptist. And she's in this opera, she's pretty crazy. I think we might end up putting some clips.
We are going to put some clips. We were going to have Laura sing, but I
have to sing a show tomorrow, guys.
We're working on protecting her voice for tomorrow. So we're going to put some clips when I resend this out.
It'll be much more satisfying.
It will be less loud for sure. But yes, so Salome will put some clips.
At the iconic moment in this opera, Salome by Richard Strauss, is Salome gets the head of John the Baptist in this version, and ends up kissing the head of John the Baptist, and covered in blood.
Super great. Yeah, and clean and beautiful.
And there are some portrayals of her where she starts just crazy. At the beginning of the opera, she walks on and she's just this crazy woman that you're scared of, you don't really connect with. It's kind of like upsetting. And I think it can work in the right contexts. But to me, because if you think of the story, this is a young teenage girl in a world where, like, this is even a thing that's on the table, beheading someone, right? And so my question is, like, why would this young girl get to the point? Because in this version, it's not really Herodias. Herodias is not the one who makes Salome do it. Like, there's a lot of agency in Salome. And so I just find it more interesting when the audience can see her as a woman searching for something, a young woman, a child searching for something. It's easier on the palate if she's a young woman, a little older. And then in my mind, I want to see the snap. I want to see, where does she go crazy? Why does she make this decision? And you can have a myriad of reasons or places in the story where that can happen. But at the end, I want you to care about what's happening to her. I want you to, it's okay if you're disturbed. You should be disturbed. Mm-hmm. But my hope is that someone comes in and also feels empathy, sympathy. Their heart goes out to this young girl who these adults around her should have protected her, for whatever it was that caused it. So I think that and it's one reason that I think when I've heard people say I don't like opera, most of them have never seen one. Mm-hmm. But to me, it's like TV. You don't just say, I love TV. Like, what does that mean? Which kind of TV show? What genre? And I think that there's opera that's not really done in an engaging way that can turn people off of it. And then there's opera that can just entrance you. And I am lucky enough to do most of the operas I do are sort of the kind that suck you in and are almost like just great theater, but set to music, mm-hmm. more than sort of the operas where they're just singing about being happy for 10 minutes, which can be beautiful, but is less interesting to me as an actress.
And I think you tend to be able to then have a slice of empathy and understanding, mm-hmm. of what things can really break and hurt people, mm-hmm. and drive them to the point of doing these things that look insane and are hurtful, and damaging. But it's so, yeah. And actually, a lot of things you're talking about sound just like when you're talking about trying to build really good character in books, mm-hmm. Script writing, anything like that, where you really have to understand the why of the character. And so to be able to get to the point of really conveying something meaningful. Mm-hmm. So one thing to kind of not super smoothly transition, but over to one thing that I think is really interesting in the opera world that feels different, but also really important for people, especially now, I think, where there's this big push and feeling that if you do not have viral growth, instant success, instant gratification, that there's something wrong with you. You're too late. You've lost your chance. And in the opera world, women in particular, but maybe all voice types,
men, very often it's later.
You don't actually reach your peak until your 40s and 50s, right? Like,
yeah, your vocal cords, vocal sort of technique solidifies. And it's different depending on the voice type. So like really high sopranos, often the peak is a little younger. Sort of the lower the voice type, very often the older. So like basses, just poor guys. They're just hanging out till they're like 40s and 50s to be able to really even do anything. With sopranos, there tends to be sort of younger roles or things that you can fill in as you go, but so much of your technique you just need age. You need age and like the solidification of hormones and growth and all of that to sort of really hit your stride. And it's something that like really great teachers are good at, sort of being patient for you, knowing that. I was talking about that in terms of starting to teach at the age that I am now, that if I look back at how I was singing in my 20s and what I was trying to fix, so much of what I was trying to fix, I just couldn't yet. Yeah. Like my voice just couldn't do yet. So yeah, there's a lot of patience, but it's work. Like you can't sit on your hands. Like you have to keep working on it, because if you just age without practicing and working on it in the middle, you still won't hit your peak then.
And so there's a lot of the stuff that you're doing early on. This is where we talk about Laura. This is one of her catchphrases, is that she's very good at prioritizing future Laura over present Laura. Mm-hmm. And so I know, especially in things that really take time to simmer and curate and grow, like within the art, basically all of the arts, this is something where it's really hard to produce deep, meaningful work. Takes time and effort. And so for those of them asking for a friend who are not naturally inclined to prioritize their future self, what are some hints, suggestions, thoughts that you would have? Because I think you're going to have to go way back, because little Laura was not actually very good at prioritizing future Laura. She was very much I'm going to go hide marshmallows in my drawer because I want to eat them all the time and I love them. And now grown-up Laura still loves marshmallows, but is very good at not just hiding them in her drawer.
That's true. I'm an adult. I don't have to hide things anymore.
That's true. You get to do what you want.
We do. We just get to buy what we want. Yeah, to me, it's actually still a bit of a mystery how
That's not helpful.
I'm sorry. How I moved from like the specific kind of child that I was to the adult that I am, because I think there are parts of little Laura that clearly are still there, but like I was an impulsive, I want what I want right now and I don't care who I affect hellion in my like early years. And I had no work ethic. I mean, I was the dumb, wildy child in terms of like, yeah, it's all right. Schooling. I remember, and I'm not sure why it stuck with me, but I remember talking to my parents about grades around middle school, and I was getting a C somewhere, or a couple probably, and I said, well, what's wrong with getting a C? And they said, nothing unless you can get an A. And I was like, okay, that's actually a decent argument. Like if truly they're like, if the best you can do in this subject is a C, we're super happy with it. But like, if you're not working at it, you're not studying, then like study. Let's see what happens. And so I think part of it was because I had this instrument that was outside my body, that wasn't a voice, it was a trumpet that you can't just pick up and play. And I knew I wanted to do that as a career. I honestly think probably practicing the instrument is what first connected with like, oh, if I put time in, like it's better later. And like the next day it's better. And it's funny because I played piano, but I didn't have the same passion for it. And so I wasn't good at practicing regularly. So I think part of it was finding something that I was passionate about. And I knew like the value I wanted, the value of being good at it. Like if I learn this skill, I can play this piece. Or if I play this better, I can get into this band or Allstate, or, I could. And so I think there was this measurable thing that then has become something I really enjoy. Like I said, I just like the feeling of improvement. It's why I've always worked out my whole life regularly. I like the feeling of getting stronger and being able to do something more the next time I come back. And so I think that it became about taking the time in the moment where you recognize the improvement, being present in that moment, being like, oh my goodness, I was able to do this. Yeah. I was able to do this because I did it yesterday and the day before and the day before. And so I think that I got to appreciate that feeling enough that then it's worth putting in. And then the truth is you get to a level where you can do most of the stuff you enjoy doing. Like with my voice, I have freedom, certain amounts of freedom in it. And I know there are areas I could list off, which I won't on camera, of things that I know I want to improve or I know can be better. And so I'm always going to be striving towards those. And I'm sort of unwilling to let them just be what I can't do. Because I have a whole lifetime to work on it. So I don't know if that's sort of a tip of like, you have to take the moment when you have the success and sort of going, oh, it's worth putting that time in.
I think that's actually really profound, this idea of finding something you really enjoy. And instead of just doing that, taking time to really look at the process and the little daily progress that you make and acknowledging, I can do this thing because of these days of doing that. Then you can apply that to things that feel really tedious and exhausting and hard in the moment. I think that's brilliant. So Good job, brilliant
We
Laura.
have it on record. My big
Woo!
sister said that I was brilliant.
Hey now.
Mm-hmm.
Laura is brilliant, by the way. So yes, and now you have seen
I'll take it.
But yeah, I love that idea of really identifying something, celebrating the small wins. Like I think we know that's something that's really important, and it's something maybe extra important when you're working on a really long road to achieving external success is celebrating those little successes.
And I think also knowing there's no like you're not done. I think that's something that I think is
hard for me, by the way.
Well, it's hard. I think it's hard like in my industry. I think that we were taught that there's a mountaintop and you get to the mountaintop and then you're at the mountaintop. You did it.
You have arrived.
And I think the thing that the further I get into this career, realizing is there's no there. Like you get there, but then the next day you have like this career in particular, and I actually think writing is the same, is it's a series of gigs, right? So like I'm going to be done with this one that I've spent months, preparing for and being here. And my life will go home and it's no different. And then the next gig comes. And in our business in particular, I can't control how wonderful that gig is in terms of the colleagues I have, the production, if I stay healthy, how my Airbnb is going to be, the weather, like all of these things I can't control. And the next gig could be an opera that I love singing, and everything could go wrong in the stuff that I can't control. And no matter how pinnacly my last experience was, like this is now my life.
Yeah.
And just because, and even like the top houses I've sung at aren't necessarily the best experiences I've had. And so the achievement is not the actual life that you're living. The achievement is little notches that you get, but like it's the day-to-day life is not that achievement. And so it's sort of the why you have to enjoy the work of it, because the achievement isn't a real thing that you get to hold on to.
Yeah.
You still have to go into the next thing, hoping that it's a good experience in the end.
Yeah, that's very good life advice right there. Yay. Thanks for anyone who's been joining recently here. Just say hello. And we're talking with soprano Laura Wilde, aka formerly.
I'm not annoying
Formerly
anymore.
Annoying Slip, little sister, about her work in opera and how crazily appropriate it is for anyone in the arts. And so I'm going to get to Sehnsucht in a little bit, but I want to ask you just mentioned things going wrong. What's the worst part of your job? Because it seems like from here, I mean, now that I know you a little bit more and I've spent the last week and a half here, I understand well, and the really challenge of getting here was exhausting. So I know there's downsides to your job, but what's the worst part? Because it doesn't look bad from out here. It looks pretty glamorous.
Yeah, does it?
Mm-hmm.
My least favorite part is having to stay healthy. Mm-hmm. The most exhausting part of this career for me is having to focus on myself so much, having to make sure I sleep, having to wake up and check my instrument. I was thinking about how like as we get older, every day you wake up and there's some new like, oh, this feels kind of weird, or that, like I slept wrong or whatever. And every little bit of that affects my ability to do my job on any day, any point of the day. Like when I'm leading up to the end of a contract, I very often will get sick right after because my body is just holding on to health. Mm-hmm. I've been flying with masks for years before the pandemic because if I get a cold, I can't do my job. And another fun part, if you don't perform, you don't get paid. So
all that work starting in May,
paying for the Airbnb, the flight, the coachings, the preparations, the scores. I get here, I rehearse, I spend months rehearsing, and then I have 5 performances. And if I get sick for one of those performances, I've lost 1/5 of my income. And that's daunting. It's exhausting. It's My family has been incredible over the years because there are times when I have not gone to visit the germ banks that are houses with children.
Children, yep, they're just gross, germy bags. Yep.
I knew that if I had weeks or months before my next job, I'd try to go then to see people because then I could get sick. But if I come home with a cold, it can ruin an entire contract. Which we have anywhere from, I don't know, 4 to 6 or something like that. Sort of, I have generally contracts in a season, 3 to 6 maybe, and so I've only, knock on wood, had to cancel one performance, but it's horrible. It's horrible because then you're letting the company down. A lot of them don't have understudies. They have to fly someone in who's going to learn it last minute, jump on stage and give a performance. And so it's, to me, the like dream of someday retiring from performing is I can wake up, have a cold, just go about the day, not measure it every moment, throughout the day. I will eat food late at night, not worry about reflux or, there's just.
Don't worry about sleeping wrong as you get older and then you can't move
Talking
for 3
too
days.
much. I'm someone who deep connection with people is really important and life-giving to me. And there have been roles where they're so taxing that I just have to stay hidden, afraid of getting germs and talking too much. And so that is the crappiest part. And there's freedom someday when I retire from performing. But yeah.
So that's the worst. What's the best? What's the best part? Or a best. You don't have to say
I
best.
love the rehearsal process in terms of staging. I love discovering a character. I love figuring out, seeing what my colleagues are going to give me for the characters, the ideas the director has, especially when I have an incredible director on Violante with the Deutsche Oper Berlin, David Ehrmann, and he was so collaborative, valued everyone's ideas, but had a clear idea and a sketch of where he wanted it to go. And it was unique and it wasn't what we expected. So I had to kind of shift my brain in terms of, well, this line used to mean this, but now it means something different. And it was just a really soul-filling experience. I get really down. I think another hard part of the career is when that process is not great. When you have directors who are unprepared or are unkind and not collaborative, who this industry is kind of catching up with like the Me Too sort of verbally abusive movement of trying to make it better. But there's a lot of sort of old ways of doing things and people who can get away with being pretty verbally abusive. And so there are times where those are the moments where I really struggle to sort of stay in the career because there's a lot of life sacrifice that happens to do this job. And when I don't feel that what I'm bringing is being valued at all, it's really hard to prioritize doing it. But when it's a great experience and when there are wonderful people who want to be collaborative, which have been a lot of my experiences, that is my favorite part.
Yeah. And by the way, feel free to drop questions in if you have any. I have a lot of questions, so I might just cover everything you want to know already. But one thing, I think we've kind of covered a lot of the things I was going to ask you through the conversation, but one thing I wanted to ask specifically about, because I think it's actually really important as a human being, but especially as an artist right now, and I didn't put this in, I prepared questions so she wouldn't be completely thrown off topic by me asking random things.
I like to be prepared.
Yes. And I'm also I don't have a lot of filters, so I didn't want to, throw her on the spot. But we went to Sachsenhausen concentration camp, and one of the things, it's very exhausting emotionally, physically, really important experience. But one of the things that was so powerful there was we were in the prison kitchen in the cellar, and they have preserved artwork that prisoners did. Man, it's gonna make me tear up. It was so beautiful, but you could see it was one of the, and then throughout the exhibit, there were examples of artwork that they had found that people had done as this beauty in the midst of pain and this longing for something. And so I thought that would actually be, it was a really good reminder of how important art is in the midst of really, really hard stuff. And one of the things that you've had that has been a really grounding principle, I think, for your career, I don't know when you came up with this or when the term really hit you, but is this concept of Sehnsucht. So explain what it is, why you want it to be a tattoo that you have, and what role it has in your role as a creative and as a human too, maybe.
Yeah. So Sehnsucht for me so it's a German word, as it sounds.
Shock. Yeah.
And it can be described different ways because Germans are the best at coming up with words for things that we don't have words for, like odd feelings. I mean, the Scandinavians are great at that too. But this to me is it's sort of the way I describe the feeling. It's like a longing that's bittersweet. So the way that I describe it is if you've had a moment where you've been listening to music or you've been in nature or you're reading a poem or there's something that like you get this moment, this overwhelming moment of like sheer bliss through your body, through your brain, and then it disappears because it's just so short and it leaves you with this like ache because you want more of it. And so it's this like bittersweet longing sort of. And I first discovered it actually in the writings of C.S. Lewis, who is my soulmate. Sorry to my husband, Jonathan. He knows. And he writes about this as being something that points humanity, human beings to something greater than just this earth and points to God, the experience of there's this, like he says, there's, when there's satiation for all these longings we have, if we're thirsty, there's water, if we're hungry, there's food. This is a universal sort of experience that people have had through different forms of, it's some people, it's music or nature or human connection or something like that. But it's this leaves us with this longing that there's something more, there's something in our soul that needs to be satiated. And I think it's so beautiful. And it, to me, ties together my faith and my love of music and nature and all of that. And I think that it's one of the things that's so beautiful about sort of the art form I get to do is that it expresses things that are hard to express with words. Music does. And I think beyond that, what music can do in the context of opera is it can also open up conversations and topics that are hard to have outside the context of the arts. Yeah. So I've done pieces really complicated, sort of politically complicated opera works. I did one years ago about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and the opera company I performed that with did a really great job of bringing together faith leaders from the community to talk about it. But it was one of those pieces that it humanized every person involved in this conflict, which caused a lot of controversy because we don't want to humanize people who we think are evil or bad. But it was something that people would come to see in opera who might not go to a lecture, right? And it opens up conversation, it opens up thought and curiosity. And you might hate it, you might leave and be angry, but that's art sort of like it. I don't think art is a fit. It's not an end in itself, in my mind. It's something that sparks something new. And I realized a while ago I did this opera called La Bohème, which is one of the most famous operas, Italian operas. And it was a character I was not looking forward to playing. She was a classic floppy character. Mm-hmm. She's one who she meets this boy and within 5 minutes they love each other, right? And then she dies of TB. It's opera. Yep, opera. Mm-hmm. But she just seemed sort of like sweet and like, their conflict is that they like I mean, there's conflict because she's sick and all of that, but it didn't have as much like grit and depth as a lot of the other women I played. And but when I got into it, a couple things happened. It was I was able to discover that the love actually I saw her character having was not necessarily just with the man, but with the community he brought to her. He had all these friends, and she ended up dying, spoiler alert, with surrounded by a community of people that she didn't have before the opera began. She was solo and alone. And so there was this extra rending thing that like destroyed me as a performer to realize that there's more to this than that. And then there was also an experience of having someone watching it and having walked through a loss recently, and the piece hit him in a way that just overwhelmed him emotionally. And I sat there and I realized I've seen this opera Bohème so many times. I've seen not great versions of it. I've left and been like, at the end of it. But I realized that like the cool thing about operas, it's so old, but like no matter how many times you see it, you are different each time. So like you can go see the same opera, but like this time I may have just fallen in love, or I might have just broken up with someone, or I might have just lost someone important to me. And so this work of art is going to hit me differently because I am different coming to it. Yeah. And it changed sort of the way that I viewed a lot of these classic operas that I think can be overdone sometimes for audiences. And it helped me understand why there are opera audiences obsessed with seeing it over and over and over. Because there are some operas, guys, that I would choose to never see again. They're not all my favorite. But I think that it like helped me understand, especially they're just opera fanatics who travel the world to see pieces that they love so much. And I think that that's the Seinsuk sort of speaks to what music can bring out in us in the human experience.
I think that is a beautiful summary of why all the stuff we were talking about before with the hard work, the daily grind, the years of things feeling fruitless, why that's all worth it. And in the end, you have the product when you're doing art, when you're creating things that actually becomes almost a living thing itself that can then go out and interact with people and change people and give people hope, make them open up eyes to see things differently. And so it's really inspiring to feel like even when things are really long and tedious and feel like they're not going anywhere, it's so important. So this has actually gone longer than I want to protect your voice for tomorrow. So I'm just going to ask one more question that I am asking everyone that I talk with. And that is, where are you finding hope, however you define that, right now?
Yeah, it's a rough time.
Yeah.
I would say after we had a wonderful lunch with a colleague of mine, who is one of my favorite people I've met on the road. And I think the thing that I would say is I'm finding so much hope in the like one-on-one conversations I get to have with people from around the world with my job. I think it's one of the really cool things being from where I'm from in the States, a pretty small community, very landlocked. I get this incredible opportunity to travel the world and meet people from all these different backgrounds. And I think I find hope because I can become very hopeless when I watch the news and I'm on social media and anything that's sort of a screen interaction. And I find so much hope when I'm actually engaging in real conversations, which I'm notorious for having uncomfortably with people who just meet me, digging into deep stuff. But like, I'm finding so much hope in who those people are and the common ground that we can find. And even if we disagree on things, I'm a big advocate for learning to disagree well. In like human connection, one-on-one connection in real life, not through screens, not through typing things, comments. I think that that's where a lot of my hope is coming these days. I'm getting to spend time with my sister.
We had to sit really close for this because we're on one screen. And I will tell you, as someone who doesn't like touch, it was a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But
You survived.
I did
Yeah,
survive.
she's okay, guys.
Well, I'm going to say let's protect your voice since it's
Okay.
been an hour. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you end up having questions after we've ended, you can send me a message and I will send out any answers later with the recording of this. But thank you everyone for joining us. I'm so glad we had a chance to chat, and I hope this leaves you inspired that the work you're doing is really important. Keep doing it. Go out into the world and have conversations with people and share your art.
Go see an opera.
And go see an opera.
Pick a good one.
It will surprise you. Oh, you know what I'll do is I'll have you write out a list of your favorite operas, and I'll send that out with the recording of this. So then,
Awesome.
yep. Also, I will send a link of where you can find her and her performances. It's laurawildesoprano.com. So yay. But anyway, thanks everyone. I hope you have a wonderful day and have a wonderful rest of your week.
Yep.
Mwah.
Bye from Berlin.